Yes, there we go. Shelter FootyCast, Will Schofield, Mark Reddings. That's the boys from the Southern River Band in Thornley. I think they're playing a local gig down at their local pub. Apparently it's going to go absolutely off. Mark Reddings will be there, but right now he's here. G'day, Skeet. How are you?
I'm going terrific, actually, Scully. Good to be with you. And look, a couple of issues that I think have bugged you over the course of the weekend. I'm told your wife Alex has just started a GoFundMe page because flag mantle is no longer realistic. It's done. It's completely done and dusted. So just to get the family afloat during the summer months, I believe you're chasing some money back.
If you are watching, I'm wearing 3 of these jumpers right now. It's quite cold.
And off the back of that, you've got to get a refund for that, and you're actually going to give Alan Joyce a Christmas card for the work for Jetstar. So you're just loving life at the moment, just putting money over money into little projects that are completely going pear-shaped.
I wasn't going to stitch you up, but after that introduction, Mark Redding's fresh off the park bench on Saturday night. How did a couple of drinks go? Okay, you're all recovered from the weekend?
No, I went to a restaurant in Chetton Park called Galileo.
How was it?
Beautiful, fantastic. I just didn't realise I'd have to get another mortgage out to pay the bill for a couple. It wasn't that expensive, but when it goes north of 300, you're starting to think, geez, I should have drunk that extra glass of wine to make it worthwhile.
Very good, mate. Very good. Good to see you. You can follow us on socials, Shelter FootyCast, or anything over at BackChat. We'll direct you over our way too. FootyCast@shelterbrewing.com.au is the email address. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on podcasts, wherever you get them. Born and brewed in Busselton, Shelter. Now, let's get into it. Just the 2 games to get through today. Some big moments of the round, though. End of flag mantle, as you spoke about off the top. I will say it's just 2022, mate. There's plenty of time that Freo can win a flag in the next couple of decades at least. So you can use these merch, backchatpodcast.com.au/merch. Mate, you can have them forever. They will last forever.
It's seamless. It's timeless.
I get
timeless. And look, their season is a success.
Yes.
Try to say that 3 times. It is one finals victory. They get themselves a big game at the MCG. Yeah. And look, 90,000. They didn't quite handle the moment, as Justin Longmuir alluded to. So they'll learn lessons. There'll be some changes to the list. But it was a big event for the footy club. And let's be honest, they came up short. They didn't deliver when they had to. In fact, it was a bit of a theme during the finals for them. Their starts, even go back to round 23, no good. So, they'll have to start looking ahead to next year.
We'll get through the game when we go to the great game breakdown. I was in Fremantle on Saturday night. It was absolutely heaving. So I thought that was that's a good thing. Not that Fremantle ever went away, but it's been a real, West Australian thing to get behind a team. West Coast hasn't gone well this year, and to be in Fremantle, every pub, like it was the sort of thing like walking down the street, if someone had a TV on, there was people standing on the street watching it. So it was pretty cool. And I think that's, like you said, they've had a good year. Will they be happy with it? Maybe not. Justin Longmuir spoke about it in the press conference really well. Everyone's a loser other than the premiership winner. Whatever game you lose, you're disappointed unless you win the flag. So it doesn't matter if you finish 8th through to 2nd. You're going to finish that game and be disappointed. So they'll be disappointed. They'll be on a Mad Monday, I'd assume, right now. Are they allowed to do that anymore?
You tell me it doesn't happen anymore?
Well, they used to make big club things, and it was Mad Monday. But now it's just some drinks. You end up at a bowls club, maybe down at Galileo for a couple of drinks at the end of the night.
I was driving back from the Waffle on Saturday at about 4 o'clock, going past the Leopold Hotel on Canning Highway, and the old days with the dress-ups, and all these blokes, obviously just community footballers, or I'm guessing, had just had they're having their Mad Saturday, and they dressed up as bunny rabbits, and it was just, it's actually quite funny watching blokes, well, say grown men, young men, walking around, and, not exactly with it. They've had a big afternoon, but I'm not sure that the Eagles never did that, did they?
Nah, early days they used to have a big club thing.
I mean, Geelong did it really well.
Well, they still do it. Spoke about that with Jimmy Bartell over at BackChat, that they had a commissioner basically, and if you didn't put in effort to that, like they would have media down to interview the guests that they'll come dressed as. So that'll hopefully be happening for Freo. But a couple other big moments. Berry in the Melbourne-Brisbane game. Can you say allegedly anymore? Because he's been charged. He's
been found guilty by the match review officer
of eye gouging.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
I agree with Jared Berry and Brisbane challenging this.
Yeah.
I do. Honestly believe, given where he was, Oliver had him pinned, And I just go back to my reference point of the Paddy Cripps. If he can the intent of Jared Berry, I think, deserves to at least be heard in a tribunal setup.
Yeah, I agree. What they're going to have to argue is bringing intentional down to careless. I think they're going to have to pull out that Berry was fearing for his life or something like that with Oliver on top of him and holding him down by his throat, and he was just scrapping away trying to get Oliver off in any case.
Which can happen. I mean,
yeah.
I'm just trying to work. You can maybe tell us if you've been in a similar situation where you've got someone who's pinning you and you're not necessarily trying to gouge them, you're just trying to get your hand in their face and get them out of the way.
I was a bit of a big, strong unit back in the day, so not too many times I found myself in that vulnerable position, Skate. But I did sort of see it happen, and it didn't look good. I've done some stuff on the footy field that I'm not, necessarily proud of. I wouldn't say not proud of, but just things have happened that I wouldn't necessarily do again. But the eye gouging stuff sort of never really came across my desk, I would say. So I wouldn't really understand it. Could you argue against it? Yes. I think he'll get off. The match review officer had to give him a week so they can then come down and fine them. Because if he just fined them, it'd be all over. And I think he probably had to err on being overcautious.
How far do you think Brisbane will take this? If they lose at the tribunal, will they go back and have another...
Well, how important is Berry to Brisbane's team?
Well, he was. Well, we'll talk about him, but he was outstanding in that second half. He was probably best on in many ways when it needed to be won. He was leading from the front.
He had 3 touches, I think, in the first quarter and finished with 26 and tagged out Clayton Oliver. So you'd say very important. What about Joe Danaher's decision before the game to fly back? So he was in Melbourne. He flew out at 10 a.m. to be with the birth of his child. Touch wood. I haven't seen much coverage over.
Not sure if the
so I do hope it all went well.
Yep.
But he flew out and missed the elimination final without knowing. Now they've won. It looks like a great decision. What about before?
Well, I've always tried to plan around the footy season. So I got married in October, had the twins in February. I even was born myself in March, so early March, so it didn't impinge on the footy season. So, yeah, I just think people got to plan it a bit better.
Really?
I do. I think
really?
Well, certainly when you get married, don't get married on September 24.
Shout out Ryan Davis, my ex-West Coast teammate, Gold Coast teammate. I won't be here grand final day because I'm in the Gold Coast for a wedding, which I might add, I think may cost me up to 10 grand, like minimum, because I'm missing events. I'm up to 6 events around grand final weekend I can't do. Jetstar's cancelled my flights, so I have to rebook them with another carrier. Go via Brisbane, mind you. I was going to the Gold Coast, now Brisbane. Trains don't operate in the middle of the night, so now we go another night of extra accommodation. I think it may cost me $10,000 to see one of my best mates get married. So thank you very much, Ryan Davis. I was a big fan of Joe Danaher saying, you know what, I'm going to go see the birth of my child.
And, he got there only 30 minutes before the birth, by all accounts. So that was a great decision for him, and it works out well because he gets to play in a prelim final.
You'd hate to have made the decision to go, miss the birth,
and then
miss the game, and it just completely could either way. Yeah, and they lose. So, yeah, he comes straight back in, obviously, right?
Yes.
But McStay... and Hipwood were a couple of really great performers. I mean, Brisbane had role players and guys that stepped up across the field, but those two really stood up in the absence of Joe Danaher. He comes in and makes them better, but Darcy fought in the ruck.
It was good.
Yeah, he was really good too. So McInerney comes back too. So do they go too? They're too tall then, right?
You're right. And we'll discuss this later, but it just shows you. Fort comes in and ruckman. They don't have to be superstars as long as they compete. I think sometimes we overthink what is required from a ruckman. I think if you just be out there and halving contests and doing your role, then you don't have to be going out and getting the big fish like Melbourne are looking to try and drag Grundy.
Well, think about the top 4 teams. So Sydney has a Tom Hickey, who is a journeyman, good mate of mine, but he just competes. Darcy Cameron's taken over the mantle from Brodie Grundy, Brodie Grundy for the last 5 years been All-Australian ruckman.
Reece Stanley and I suppose Blitzan does a bit of...
Don't even know who Geelong's ruckman are.
Yeah, it's more Stanley, I suppose.
And then Brisbane with Darcy Ford, effectively. And Oscar McInerney, a good player, but a competitor. So no one in the top 4 has a superstar ruckman, per se.
Exactly.
I think you might be onto something there. All right, let's get into it. West Coast and Freo wrap. You are on the Shelter FootyCast with Matt Reddings, Will Schofield. Sad to say this will be the last time we do the West Coast and Freo wrap because Collingwood defeat Fremantle by 20 points. I think the margin was a little flattering, but that's how footy goes sometimes. I know people said that Collingwood were all over them, but Freo got the momentum late in the game. They were never going to win, but Collingwood had the momentum early in the game. So that's what the margin is, 20 points in the end. Flagmantle train ends. Collingwood go on. We both pick Collingwood? No, you pick Collingwood. I pick Fremantle. For Correct. My merchandise's sake.
Yeah, well, you were thinking through your wallet, which is fair enough. But they just, as I said, they had stage fright in my eyes. And you can't do what they did in the last 3 matches, concede a 5-goal start against the Giants, a 7-goal head start against the Bulldogs. And then you sort of knew at 4 goals to zip that it was going to be tough to get back.
You can't give those sorts of starts away to good teams. Now, GWS not a good team. Western Bulldogs scraped into finals, so they were able to rectify that. But Collingwood have been a very good team all year round. So you can't give a good side 4 goals, especially at the MCG, especially Collingwood at the MCG, especially a good Collingwood side at the MCG. So they were behind it, 90,000 people there, which was terrific experience for a lot of those guys. David Mundy's last game, of course. How it went down, though, yes, they gave away the start, but Fremantle, they couldn't get their ball movement going. So we've known them as a great defensive side, but how they've scored this year is moving the ball with speed, and Collingwood completely shut them down, and Fremantle had no trigger to pull. They couldn't. In other games, we've seen like a Walker or a Clark sort of line breaking that sort of take the game on. They couldn't take the game on. If you think about the game, they just never took it on. And it wasn't. I don't think it was stage fright. I was scared to take it on. They would get the ball, look up. Collingwood were defending really well, and then they would force them long down the line. And it was just on repeat. I've played in games like that, and they just couldn't get their game going until probably the last quarter, and it was all over.
And Collingwood might have been a bit of self-preservation for what they knew was ahead. You're right. I think you summed it up really well. Collingwood was always going to try and play a more up-tempo game when they had the footy, but they were very good, as you say. Even though I was watching it on TV, you could tell that Fremantle's defenders, when they had the ball, didn't have any confidence to get the ball moving. So they'll learn lessons on that. They'll learn, they'll learn that they got beaten up in the midfield. They had a lot of areas that they probably were down on. And off the back of that, they're going to lose some players, some quality players by the sounds of it.
Yeah, can we speak about that? Because, Fremantle's had their best year in recent memory. They've got a young, up-and-coming side that clearly, I think, going to be a good side for a long period of time, given the cattle they have. Yet, we've got at least 5 players that are touted to, if not gone from the footy club, and they're the guys that are playing games. They don't have 5 guys that are not getting a game.
A Lloyd Meek, for instance, you can understand.
Yes.
You know what? He needs opportunity, but Blake Acres is the one that really
he'll be top 5 in their best and fairest. If
me.
He's not, it's because of the injury.
So why is he going? He came back to Perth, obviously, for personal and home reasons and family. So what? I understand it must be a financial. Has to be financial.
Yeah.
That he's going to
so
hit.
Griffin Lowe, you can kind of understand, but Freo will want to keep a Griffin Lowe. That's not the sort of guy you let walk out the door. A guy that can play forward, back. Yes, he's not their best forward or back, but he can play or he can compete. He's played almost every game this year. Rory Lobb, okay, do you have a replacement in Jackson if you go and get him? But he's certainly an expensive replacement because I don't think you're upgrading tenfold on a Rory Lobb.
No, but potentially as a player, Jackson, I think if you're going to put the two of them together, Lobb at the sort of with 3 or 4 years left, Jackson with plenty of years left, he's probably going to be a better player long term. But we're still not quite sure what Jackson brings to the table as a forward or a ruckman. So yeah, that's a good point.
So Lobb goes, Mundy of course goes. So they've got 5 starting players that may be gone from this team that have given them such a good run. I'm sure there's not anything else going on behind the scenes, but it's just a weird thing for me. Like usually with a young team, developing team going really well, people be, where do I sign? Doesn't seem to be the case at Freo.
Yeah, and Griffin Lowe, very popular amongst the group, I believe, and Blake Acres, the form. I think he'll be finishing. He said top 5 in their Doig medal. That is really interesting. So at the end, we get the result I expected, and you sort of were hoping that they might have shown a bit more on the big stage.
Talking about things that we expected and predicted, you predicted 4 goals to our man Jack Ginnivan.
Yeah, no, I was
3 goals, 1.
Yeah, no, well, I was just telling you what I thought was going to happen, and it was pretty clear. He's a kind of kid that'll just bob up in front of 90,000. He just loves the spotlight, and he wasn't their best player, but he was
very good,
very handy.
Take a compliment when I give him to you, mate.
Thank you very much.
Very
and for what it's worth, I think you said Lockie Schultz would be the X Factor player for Fremantle.
It was good.
Kicked 3, I think.
Is that a compliment back my way?
Yeah, no, it's a love fest.
Best players, Bray Shaw, he's been good all year. He'll win their best and fairest. There's actually no doubt about that. There's lay down Mazzari, may win the Brownlow, who knows. 32 touches. Sarong had 34. He was outstanding again after a good first final. And Blake Acres, with a knee injury early in the game, looked like he was going to be done and dusted. He had 27 touches. He's just such an important player. Out of all those guys we spoke about, Logue, Meek, Lob, Liam Henry, I think, is rumoured as having a look around. Acres is the one that I would be putting some more money out to keep, because I think he's a really important structural player to Fremantle. I've spoken about it a bit on this show and other places. He does stuff that other players can't or won't, or he's been willing to do that. So across that wing, it gives them a real defensive cover that allows their defence to press up the ground on the other side while Acres slides in behind. He'll be a big loss if they lose him. But Collingwood go on. They've been a bloody good side all year, and they deserve to be in a prelim.
Yeah, and look, going back, everyone's looking at history and sides coming from a long way back, and your Eagles did it going back to what?
2010, 2011.
2011, yeah, you got to a prelim final. Well, Collingwood, they're a team that actually going back before the AFL to 1977. They finished last, I'm pretty sure, in 76, and under Tommy Hafey, they went to last into a grand final in 1977 against North Melbourne.
Wow.
And the historical...
Is that the Harms one? Is that the Harms?
No, 1977 against North Melbourne.
He plays for Carlton.
He plays for Carlton, yes. The
So
historical significance of this 1977, just give us the reason why 77 was such an important, significant grand final year in the VFL. 1977.
It was a draw.
Bang on. Absolutely. They came back for the replay, which they obviously had for so many years, and North Melbourne beat Collingwood. But
I was looking into Dan's eyes there, and he was giving me some sort of dead eye look just off into the distance.
You are a bit young. I was only 7 when it happened.
I did get it. My
Yeah.
brain did click into gear.
Yeah.
And he didn't give too many clues either.
No. But anyway, that shows you the type of territory that the Magpies are in at the moment.
Well, they've come from 17th last year, the second last, no hope, rookie coach, to do what they've done this year, to win so many games, close games.
I'd love to see them get in the grand final.
Do you give them a hope to do that?
Of course I do. They'll have to change things that they did against the Sydney Swans last time at the SCG. Now, here's my silly question, my ignorant question, which sometimes lands in your lap.
What other questions do you ask?
Where are they playing Saturday's game? Is that Homebush, the big stadium? I'm assuming it is, or is it the SCG?
I think it's the SCG.
Is it? Okay. SCG. So,
Yep.
amazing, because if you play that game, maybe it's unavailable because of NRL finals,
Yeah.
but it's 60, 70,000 people, you'd feel it.
Yeah.
Whereas the SCG is probably, 35, 40 maximum?
Can we get a capacity on the SCG,
Anyway,
please, Dan?
just think, numbers-wise, it's strange. Having said that, I've called footy out at Homebush,
Yeah.
and it is a soulless, lifeless, horrible place. Oh, you've been there, obviously, and played footy.
Terrible. I was first emergency one week, and we had 3 injured players, and it was at the time I had a sore back, I had sore shoulders. I had to get both my ankles strapped, both my shoulders strapped, my back strapped. So I had this like
the Tin Man.
Yeah, but I wasn't playing, and so I had to warm up downstairs. I wasn't allowed on the oval to warm up because there was all these guys at risk. Everyone got through. I had to go in the showers. As I'm in the showers, Eric McKenzie comes down after 5 minutes in the first quarter. He'd done the injury that he didn't do in the warm-up 5 minutes into the game.
Oh, and there's no medi subs back
No,
there?
no medi subs. No, I was just in the shower ripping my tape off that was, as sore as can be. So that's my memories of Homebush. They put shit on.
48,000, by the way, at the SCG, which is not quite half of what you get at Homebush. But again, I'm not sure of the availability or even if Homebush is still operational as a footy
I don't
ground.
even know if they play there anymore.
No.
You called the Peel game, Fremantle's Waffle subsidiary. How did they lose? How did they look? They win against South Freo. They move on in the finals.
Yeah, as Jeff Valentine said post-match, which was on camera, he said we played like busted asses in the first half, which was true. South should have won that game. And there's people that jump up and down about Peel Thunder and the AFL listed talent they had, but bottom line is South Fremantle kicked straight in the first half, game over.
Right.
Don't worry about Peel for the rest of the season. So South have their chances, but end of the day, Peel, of course, now they've won and Fremantle has lost, they now can use 12 listed players for the rest of their finals campaign, but they must have played 6 matches for the season and 2 of the last 8. So there are parameters there.
It'd be good to see what that sort of list looks like that they can draw from.
Well, Lloyd Meek would be available to go on. Matt Taberner wouldn't. Oh, just off the top of my head.
Connor Blakely will be there.
So they'll
Nathan Wilson will be there.
But I'm also thinking of what AFL clubs will like. Lloyd Meek will be a real watch.
Yeah.
Over the next.
Did he play well?
Yes, he was good. He was good. Who else were we talking about from Taberner? Who I'm not even sure why he played Tabs. To be honest with you.
I mean, well, because if
they'd lost the night before.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not sure why he played, but he apparently
to win. To win.
Yeah, of course, yeah. No, but it wasn't like a necessity for him to get ready for next week. So he's done for the year. But, Peel Thunder get through.
Yep, very good. I will say, you did mention this, internally at Peel, so whatever the waffle rules are, they do have a rule that it's around 12 players in the Freo side anyway. So regardless of if Freo are playing or not, they have an internal rule that they want to reward their local talent.
Keep talent.
They don't want 18 Freo players coming down there. So I don't think much will change for them. It'll be interesting to see how they go. Let's look at the rest of the round. Brisbane defeat Melbourne by 13 points in an absolute cracking game. If you put the first 4 games into the 5th final of this year, probably the 5 greatest finals to be played in succession. It was Friday night footy. Brisbane come in with a horde of guys that were out. McInerney missing, Danaher laid out. A couple of guys come in, but they were unbackable. I think Melbourne were $1.13 before that game, and Brisbane were out to $4.50. So you couldn't back them. They were never going to win. They hadn't beaten Melbourne at the G since 2012. They hadn't won at the G since 2014. They hadn't beaten.
They got smashed about 2 weeks ago.
They hadn't beaten Melbourne's in 2018. Like they just couldn't win. But I actually did, although I didn't pick them on this show, but who cares? I don't get any of my picks right. I did have this feeling that all of those things weighing up, if put in the right way to a team, can really help. And you can get this, us against the world type feeling, and it can really bring a team together. And that's what it looked like. They looked up for the fight for most of the game. They started poorly. Melbourne were all over them. Melbourne kicked in accurately and really kicked themselves out of the. They could have actually finished the game in the first quarter, didn't. And Brisbane just got on the fight, and they started winning the contested ball. Lachie Neale stepped up in the second half. They shut down Oliver. I don't know why teams don't do this more. Shut down the best player. We spoke about this, right? We did speak about this. Would they shut down Oliver? Well, they did. Oliver had 22 touches. Berry went to him late.
Petrarca was sore, clearly with that leg fracture. I can understand the mindset of him playing because, if you lose, which they did, it's all over. So no point resting him when he's.
He was probably their best player.
Yeah, I mean, but you could see he was visibly sore. I mean, they kicked 12 of the last 17 goals. Brisbane.
Yeah.
That shows you the dominance they had in that game, and it was actually mirrors a bit of what we saw with Melbourne and Sydney in the qualifier, just in terms of Melbourne dominant, and then they just fell away in the second half, and it sums up the second half of their season.
So they've been a bit of chat about losing, forgetting his first name, but Burgess, the
Darren?
Yeah, so Darren Burgess was at Port Adelaide, then went to Liverpool, into the EPL, and then he came back, and he was touted as this guy that had them on the path to their, you think about that third quarter in the grand final last year, they were just running. They just ran better than anyone. Well, they've had a lot of last half fade outs this year, and there's been a lot of chat about the loss of Burgess. So I don't know where he went, but he left Melbourne. And I've sort of been thinking about it. I don't know how much of a change that makes. I'm big on mindset, Skate. I think it's more, they looked mentally fatigued. Defending a premiership.
Exactly. Well, I was about to say exactly the same
Defending
thing.
a premiership is mentally taxing because every single game you go into,
You're the hunted.
Yeah. And as you should be, you're the best team, but it's bloody hard. It's harder than the first year because the first year, some games you're playing against good sides, but you're defending. Everyone wants to beat you. Doesn't matter how you go.
It's the goal. I totally concur with what you say because you look at what Melbourne was able to do in the first half of the year, 11 wins in a row, and then once they had their flat spot, they just couldn't quite. They had some really nice performances, but it was very much up and down. So no, I absolutely agree with you now. Apparently, Burgess is at Adelaide or Port Adelaide? Or double check that.
He used
He
to
did. I
be-
thought he went back to Port Adelaide, but I stand corrected.
He could have gone home.
But you're right, though. I just think that that's why I very rarely tip a team to go back to back with premierships.
Yeah.
And on that
what's
basis,
hard.
it's just so difficult to win one, and the luck and the management required to win a second, as you just said, you are completely the focus of every team you play against because you're the measuring stick for the following year.
That's why there's so much respect for teams that do it. So Richmond have done it, Brisbane have done it, Geelong didn't do it, Hawthorn, of course, did it. So these sorts of sides, that's why personally as a player, ex-player, I've got so much respect for that because they found a way to, mentally get themselves over the line. Physically, of course, they're a good side. You don't get worse as a team or as players, but you have to get better. That's because everyone else is getting better. So Melbourne couldn't do it. They're out in straight sets, which is a relatively big story, I think. Apparently, according to his LinkedIn, he is now in Adelaide. Thank you very much, Dan. That's Burgess.
Adelaide Crows, yeah.
Yeah, give us a little bit of a flick down. Thank you, Daniel. Overall in the game, Lions kicked the last 12. Melbourne were inaccurate early. Neil tagged early but came into the game and really got into it. Lever's last minute fade out. Doesn't lose in the game, but it was probably
Is it a free kick?
Yes, 100% it was a free kick. So it was tackled. He put the ball on the ground. So I heard some talk from different people. Why was it a free kick? Well, he was being tackled and he just put it on the ground. You can't. That's holding the ball. That's like dropping the ball effectively. So I'm not sure what he was arguing about. It took a long time to give the ball back to the umpire. It probably, in a whole, summarised their season a little bit. Arguing. It's sort of there was stuff going on.
Well, the
Melksham
Lever, the Melksham May thing, all that stuff. Although we're not saying it's the reason they didn't go on and reach a prelim final. Those sort of things don't invariably. I mean, I've seen incidents, for instance, at the Eagles where I think it was Phil Matera and Richard Taylor going back, and there was there's a punch thrown at training. When it's done socially, I don't know. That's maybe indicative of not such a great environment.
Let's talk about Brisbane though. Hipwood was I thought really good, probably his best game I've seen him play. Daniel McStay was very good. Fort was very good. Berry came in and played a role. They had guys that stood up across the ground. Harris Andrews took out Dan's man in Ben Brown. Not sure if Ben Brown's the sort of guy that sort of is the loggerhead that you want at your forward line, but I'll get into that another time. Harris Andrews was very, very good. They win and they move forward. Are they a wild card or have they played their last game?
You know what I'm scared about? This sounds really bad. I don't really want Brisbane playing Sydney in a grand final. I'm being totally honest.
No, that's probably.
I don't want that. I want to see. I know I'm West Australian, so I want to see the big club. I want to see Geelong.
Yeah.
Sydney wouldn't be the worst result, but I want to see.
You don't want Brisbane in it, basically.
And I'm a Queensland boy. And I just want to see that it's nothing like seeing a Collingwood get through, as you know, the atmosphere that's created. Geelong's a big club, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. Brisbane, Sydney, would that rattle your cage?
Yeah, Brisbane, Sydney. I wouldn't be the best combination of teams, would it? I mean, Geelong Collingwood would be incredible. Geelong Melbourne would have been very good, but Geelong Collingwood would be a good game. Geelong Sydney.
Because it's the old versus the up and comers, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to see how that goes. It was a good weekend of footy. 20-point margin in the Freo game and less than that in the Melbourne. So it's been a tight final series. Probably it's one of the better ones in recent memory that I can think of.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if there's one. Yeah, there hasn't been a dud game, has there really? No, it's been good. I think the result of the Saturday night game was known pretty early.
Yeah.
But yeah, by all accounts, it ends up being a better final series than one. I can't remember any better thus far. That's
the wrap of the round of the Shelter FootyCast. Mark Rennings, Will Schofield. Now we're going to give one of these out. The Shelter XPA, X Factor, WA only. So maybe the last slab we give to a WA player.
Has to be.
Can we or not?
Yes, we can.
David Mundy. He kicks a goal late. He was very good. I had someone call me on radio, on Talkback Radio, saying David Mundy, if he's not going on with Freo, should be recruited by someone else. I just put the brakes a little bit. Imagine getting David Mundy and Josh Kennedy to your club next year, a couple of old retirees down there to coach the boys.
Well, the funny thing is...
Could be worse things done by the Gold Coast Sun, by the way. But
I think Kennedy, the issue is he's cooked physically.
Yes.
He kicks 8 in his last.
Yeah.
Whereas Mundy, I think he's okay physically,
Yeah.
but probably
He's just had enough.
once you shut down, it's like, I think I heard you say on radio yesterday, it's a very good analogy when you get that call, you're on holidays and you've packed your bags and you get a call from the airport saying, look, you can catch a flight in 2 days from now, or, hang around and then have that extra 2 days. Once you pack, once you're ready, you're checked out. That's exactly what
I think
Farah's done.
unless you're flying Jetstar, and then who knows when you leave. So David Mundy, he's done and dusted, but he'll take the Shelter XPA X Factor. He kicked a goal late. It was good. He was in the cold face when they needed him. He was clean. He
Kicked a goal late.
He did what David Mundy always does. He's just a consistent player, and we'll send him out with a slab. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. And you know what? Given he's such a smart individual, he acts with class and dignity, doesn't he? And the way we went out on the weekend, it's great that footy now recognises players like that. Both teams come together, and I think it's one of the, you might say I'm a bit soft, but I love that fact that they because I know you're a bit of a hard
I just say
ass.
you're old, not soft.
Okay. I am. I'm both. I'm old and soft. Like Easter eggs after they've been in the sun. No, I just think it's great they had the respect they show players, either milestone games or retirements. I think that's one of the nice parts of footy.
I saw Scott Pendlebury losing his marbles at someone. I don't know if it was staff or if it was a player, or I think it could have been they started playing the Collingwood song really early. Like he hadn't finished going down the race, and Pendlebury was going off his nut. And I think it was at a staff member to say, like, why are we playing this song? He was saying, show some respect, show some respect, show some respect. So, agree with you, Collingwood. And they've done that well all year as a footy club, I think.
All clubs do it, though. But
yeah.
Mate, I want a heap of respect for Collingwood after the grand final that you won.
Yeah.
I just thought, I don't know if you had any dealings with them, but I just thought Buckley, Eddie, just outstanding. I mean, like I was actually having a couple of shelters in the outer and yelling out the collie wobbles are coming, and Collingwood fans could tell they were under, but they handled it.
Yeah.
I thought as a club exceptionally well, and that's as bitter as a defeat as you can get in the ground. Hard to take as any I've ever seen. So no, I've got a lot of respect for the Pies.
Yep, let's hopefully they keep going on. That's it, done and dusted for the Shelter FootyCast. You can follow us on socials, Shelter FootyCast on Instagram. Watch us on YouTube. You can see Skeet's beautiful suit, my beautiful flag medal jumper, probably for the last time. BackChatPodcast.com.au/merch. Listen to us on podcast. We'll be back Thursday for a preview of the big finals coming up. Skeet's off to Melbourne soon. You're not going this week, are you, next week?
No, I'm going to go Thursday week, and I'll just get there and just soak it all up. And I mightn't get to the parade, but I'll get to the footy.
Very good. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield, done and dusted. See you next week.